welcome everyone. So this is our first slice of the fall semester. So SLICE, just so you know, stands for Students Learning Innovative and Creative Endeavors. I'm distracted because again, I just got another email. Not about a pet though. So I'm glad you're here. This is one of my very favorite programs that we do at Waterville Creates. It's our free program for folks that are young adults, teenagers, and who might be interested in arts or might be interested in careers in the arts. So a lot of people think of arts as a hobby, which I think is amazing also, but it's always nice when you can learn about professions in the arts. So I'm really thrilled today to have Desi DuBois here. So she is, I've been actually thinking about this for a while. The Waterville Opera House does some really great presentations and workshops, and often they're acting workshops. And what I was hoping for is that we could do actually some other parts of theater production. So some of you may have been in theater productions and realize the amount of work that go into theater productions. And one of those parts is the set design and the set painting. So I'm really excited that you'll get to hear a little bit about how that works, how set production or set design works, and all the people that work together to create a theater production. So as we go, you're welcome to put questions in the Q&A or the chat. We have both of those as an option, and I will monitor that part. And then at the end, we're going to keep this to about an hour, and maybe it'll be 45 minutes and then 15 minutes for questions and as we're making things. And I also will have a feedback form, and I will put the link to that feedback form. It's a Google form. I'll put that in our little chat window so that you can check it out. So okay, so I'm gonna stop talking and let Desiree introduce herself and then share her screen. And again, if you need anything or want to raise your hand, that's even an option in the bottom there. So all right, thanks.
Yay, thank you, Serena. Hi, everyone. I am so happy to be here today. And thank you all for joining me. My name is Desi DuBois. I am the Education and Outreach Coordinator for Waterville Creates. And I've also worked locally as an artist and a scenic painter for over 20 years. And today we're going to be diving into the world of scenic painting and set design. And I'm just so excited to take you with me. So first off, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself and show you some slides of the other types of art I create. And I am just going to pause here to do a screen share. And okay. So let's start the slideshow. So I have always had a hunger and a curiosity to learn as many different forms of art as I could. I continuously try new mediums. And I think that over the years, I've found that I've felt most comfortable with drawing and painting, which translated really well to scenic painting. And this is a set that I did for Lakewood Theater back in 2013. It was for the Games Afoot, and we will talk more in depth about this particular set a little later in the presentation. So my creative path, I have been a mural artist. I've sculpted. I did cake art for a number of years. I also branched out my creativity and am a community theater actress, which I really enjoy. I super enjoy scenic painting, and the most recent stop on my creative journey is becoming the Education and Outreach Coordinator for Waterville Creates. And it's truly wonderful. I get to help facilitate art programs and opportunities to the Waterville community and beyond, and I just love it. So I want to show you some of my cakes. So these are a couple that I created. I worked as a cake artist at the bakery in Skowhegan full time for 6 years and then part time for another 2. And cakes were fun. They were definitely the most difficult medium I've ever worked with, because frosting is really messy. It's super temperamental. Like actually the weather plays a part in whether or not frosting behaves. And at the end of the day, your sculptures and your cakes have to be edible. So you have to be really careful when making them because people are going to slice into them and eat them later. Some other work that I've done, these are my stone spirits that I paint, or my rock faces. And I've painted these for 16 years now. Basically, I collect beach stones and see imagery, usually faces, within the divots and the patterns and the curves of the rock, and I bring it out with acrylic paint and really tiny brushes. It's super fun. I love doing it. I've made probably by now, I want to say hundreds, if not, over 1,000 of them. It never gets old. No 2 rocks are ever the same. So it's really, really fun. And yeah. These are some of the sculptures that I've created. This whale that you see on the left, it's just resting on a black piece of paper for contrast for the picture that I took. But basically, I made these 3 different clouds and the mama and the baby whale and the moon separately out of polymer clay, which is something you can actually find right at Joann Fabric or Walmart. And it's sort of a relief sculpture, and it was meant to be hung on the wall in maybe like a nursery or something. It went to a gallery in Camden. And then the sculptures to the right are ceramic sculptures that I created with a ceramic artist named David Ellis. They were really cool. They were formed, like hand built and formed out of around newspaper. Actually, that's what like held the sculptures up. And a friend of mine made the wooden bases. Really super fun to create. These are just a couple examples of the paintings that I've created. The painting on the very left with the hands around the globe, I painted during the pandemic as a symbol for all of us, hopefully working together to get through this, kind of a symbol of hope. In the middle here is Frida Kahlo, who I greatly admire. She's an amazing artist. If you haven't seen her work, please check it out. It's so cool. And this painting is actually a portrait of my daughter, which I have included a quote with. And the Frida and the portrait of my daughter are both watercolor, which I love working with, and the hands around the globe is acrylic. This is an illustration that I'm working on for a book that I've written and that I'm currently illustrating. It takes place on solstice night in Maine in the woods, and I'm hoping that it will come out within probably like the next couple of years. It's going to take me a while to illustrate it, but I just wanted to give you guys an exclusive sneak peek here. These are the sunflower selfie stations that I painted. Probably a good example of mural art that I've done. Even though they're cut out and they're not on a wall, it's still pretty much mural art because of the scale of these pieces. You may have seen them around Waterville. There is one still up at Castangoi Square if you want to check that out. I think we're actually taking it down tomorrow, so you only have today to check it out. But yeah, I greatly enjoyed this. Super fun project. Okay, so back to scenic painting. My introduction to scenic painting was through Lakewood Theater in Madison. And that's where I received most of my training. It was totally on the job training. And I got into scenic painting initially just as a summer job back in 1999 between my junior and senior year. I just wanted to do something creative instead of like working at Subway. So I knew the theater owner because I'm from Cornville and he was also from Cornville, and we'd kind of seen each other throughout the years. And I just presented my drawings and paintings that I'd created like in classes at school as my portfolio. And luckily he and the technical director, Jeff Watts, saw potential in me and hired me, and the rest is history. So I was definitely super lucky to work with Jeff Watts. He was a brilliant, multi-talented theater buff. He was involved in nearly every aspect of theater production, which is cool. In community theater, there's kind of no limit to what you can be involved in. Whereas maybe professional theater, you might have just one job that you do. He acted, he directed, he wrote plays, he costume shows, and he built and painted sets for every show that I painted that summer. He was there basically 24/7. And if you really love theater, you kind of just want to live there anyway, right, Serena? He was a truly creative genius, and his enthusiasm totally rubbed off on me. And though I was completely inexperienced, he saw my willingness to learn and took me under his wing. And I learned pretty much all of the techniques that I use to this day from him. And I'm excited that I get to talk about them and show you all and pass these techniques on. I think that Jeff would really love that. So one more aside before diving like fully into scenic painting. Oh, actually, I should talk a little bit about Lakewood Theater. It's just in Madison, Maine. It's the oldest summer theater in the US. And actually, way back when, I want to say between like the early 1900s and maybe like the 70s or the 80s, Hollywood stars and Broadway stars traveled all the way to Madison, Maine and acted at Lakewood Theater. Some of the notable ones and names you might recognize are John Travolta and Betty White, Vincent Price, Mickey Rooney. So just a lot of really cool people have acted there. That was part of the draw for me, like really wanting to work there for my summer job. Okay. And yeah, the aside that I want to just take a moment to talk about before I get into scenic painting. So the joys of community theater. It's really great to be involved. If you love theater at all, I highly recommend joining your local community theater, because you could totally get the opportunity to play your dream role. When you go to LA or New York, there's so much competition, and you may not get to play the role that you really love. But if you work really hard and have a great audition, you can totally play your dream role if you're involved in community theater. You get to work behind the scenes maybe of your favorite show and learn the technical aspects and gain experience in stage production and all of the facets and all of the different things that go into producing a show. And you might really find a stagecraft like lighting or sound or scenic painting or something that you really enjoy. Plus, theater people are the best people, and you might just find your people. So yeah, highly recommend becoming involved in community theater. Okay, so let's see here. This is a progress slide of the Games Afoot, that first slide that I showed you. And as you can see, the set is very much still under construction. At Lakewood, we would only have 4 days to build the set. And so basically the previous set would be torn down or taken down on Sunday, and the new set would have to go up and be ready for opening night on Thursday. It was really intense. And I learned to paint very quickly and to not second guess myself and just to go with it. We all had to work together really efficiently to make this happen. And sometimes paint would actually be drying just a couple hours before the curtain went up. It was crazy. So you can see that this set here is made from wood, probably like thin plywood and luan. And some sets are built with reusable lightweight canvas flats, which are basically 4-foot by 12-foot wooden frames with canvases stretched over them and stapled to the back. And they are very easy to store, very easy to move. They're braced from the back, so they're easy to put up. And I learned mostly to scenic paint on canvas flats. Those were my first experiences with painting. And at first, the sad part to me was that I would have to paint over some of my favorite creations. Like I do like a cityscape or a landscape, and it would be up for the run of the show. And then I would have to paint over it with wallpaper or just a solid color for the next show. And you'll find that often with community theater, due to the budget restrictions, flats and set pieces are reused and repainted. So it helped me get over any attachment that I had to the work that I was doing. And that was really hard as an artist because I worked really hard. But another thing I had to train myself to do was to think about scale and measurements, either measuring by eye and using my best judgment, or actually taking a ruler and yardstick out to measure. Sometimes I've been asked to paint a bookcase on a flat wall or shelving with bottles on them for a bar, or even like a row of windows. And in order to help sell the illusion that these items, that these things are real or believable, their measurements had to be consistent, precise, and accurate. So really, as a scenic painter, you're measuring things a lot, and you're also using your best judgment, like eyeballing things. And to talk about the scale of things, sometimes I've been hired to paint rolling hills or mountains, like the one pictured here. This isn't my creation, but it's a really great example of just this sheer scale of painting that you have to do sometimes as a scenic painter. And I had to learn to think about filling the stage with these enormous backdrops and where the other set pieces would be on stage. So for Sarah Plain and Tall, I had to do like rolling planes and clouds, but there were like 2 houses that were on the stage with the big backdrop that I painted. And so I had to consider what would be seen and what wouldn't be seen and do the level of detail accordingly. So as I was saying, once I painted a cityscape that was only seen through the windows of the main setting, which was a New York apartment. And I had to think about what audience members would see from their seats and different sight lines, or unobstructed views of the cityscapes and where. So I had to think about what the front row would see, what the balcony and the side balconies would see. I also had to consider how close the buildings would be to the apartment and how tall the buildings would look in comparison to the apartment. And so this here is an example of a backdrop with immense scale, and the scenic painter had to really consider what people would actually see if they were standing at the edge of a body of water and surrounded by mountains. I couldn't find any information about who painted this or what maybe film even this was for, or it could have been for a theatrical production, but it's a super fantastic example for its detail and realism and the realistic scale that it's set in. So scenic painting, I think, is probably perhaps unique in this way. A lot of painters who create artwork for homes or to have in galleries work rather small in comparison to this. They probably have in mind that the viewer is going to either be really close to their painting or maybe at most like across the room from their painting. Scenic artists have to think about what the audience in the front row is seeing and what the the audience members in the very back row of the balcony are seeing. The set designers also have to take this into consideration. We often use what's called the 30-foot rule. Nothing on stage will be seen from any closer than 30 feet away, except by the actors, but they don't count. I don't, maybe I shouldn't say that, but yeah, nothing will be seen from any closer than 30 feet away. This means a couple of things. You can leave out a lot of fine detail because it won't be seen anyway. And you also have to use lines and contrast and colors that may be exaggerated for things to be seen at all. So as a scenic painter, you really collaborate with quite a few members of the production team. It's actually really great. I love collaborating. So the technical director is one, and their job is chiefly, they kind of just manage everything. They manage the set building and the painting crew and the budget and materials. And they're usually who facilitates communications between the scenic designer and the builders and painters and those who are working on the set. The set designer has a really important job. They create the design and the look of the set, and use a combination of creativity, imagination, and practicality. They have to consider the measurements and the height of the physical theatrical space. And they also have to know the play really well and what the director's vision is for the story. So they've got to take into consideration the different set pieces that each scene of the play calls for. And they need to keep in mind what the actors need and make sure that their set is functional, that their design is functional. The actors can be seen and heard well. Hopefully, if the design is great. And if it's a musical, they might have to allow for some scenes with some extra space for dance numbers, or at the very least, like sturdy set pieces that the actors can stand on and dance from. They consider light and color and overall tone of the show. And if it's like a happy show, happy colors and designs to reflect that. And if it's a dark, creepy show, maybe they'll use colors or designs to nod to the overall tone. So you also work very closely with the carpenters and the lighting designers. And it's really, really cool. So bringing a set to life, scenic painting is a really important job. It finishes and polishes the set. If something is painted well, it can really add to the finishing touch of the show. Sometimes as a painter, you work directly from what are called paint elevations. I'll show you those later in the presentation. And sometimes you're told to just, like, these copy a famous painting, and like the one to the right is American Gothic, and I don't remember what the one to the left is called, but these are famous paintings that I've just very quickly had to replicate. Sometimes you're told to do a 19th century village square. I'll show you one that I did for Music Man a little later on. And you have to do your own research and gather your own reference photos. So this is another example of the painting that I can't remember the name of, but this one was really fun because there was actually a hole in the canvas around where the sleeve of the painting was. And this was for a murder mystery, and someone actually one of the actors slid their hand through the sleeve and poisoned a drink and then pulled it back out. And it was like a funny moment of the show. And sometimes the things that you paint are like part of the joke of the show, like this, or just part of the telling of the story. I mean, it's always part of telling the story, I guess. Oh, this is the town square that I painted for the Music Man. You can see some wrinkles in the actual canvas that I painted. I wish that it had been hung a little tightly so that it wouldn't reflect. But yeah, I just had to just in 4 days, along with all the other things that I had to scenic paint, just whip out this cool backdrop for Music Man of a 19th century village square. It was really interesting. Okay, so let's see here. This is the set design for the Games Afoot, that very first slide that I showed you. Let's see what's next. Yeah, this is the finished work. And I painted each of these stones by hand, each of these field stones. And I had to climb on enormous ladders. So sometimes as a scenic painter, you have to just ignore that you're afraid of heights. And so these wooden doors were just flat wood, probably Luan or plywood again. And so I did the texture and the painting on those. This fireplace was also just wood, and I treated it to look like stone as well. And I'll give you another glance at the design. So the design did change a little bit. We didn't have like the rounded tops to things that we had initially thought we would be able to do. Again, we only had 4 days to put this up, and we were there pretty much a lot. We didn't get a lot of sleep. So we kind of just ran out of time for a few things, but overall it pretty much was true to design. So some of the tools that you use as a scenic painter, and when I do my live tutorial of some of the things, we'll be using some of these. But basically, most theaters that are on a budget use flat latex house paint. There are different paints. I'm not sure what they are, but for professional theaters where the set will be used for maybe like years of, or just multiple seasons of the run of a show. So they use a more durable, more intense paint, but a lot of the community theaters around here use flat latex house paint. Sponge brushes are key. These are actually the sponge brushes, and they are great for creating texture, for drawing straight lines or painting straight lines. Paint brushes, many different types are used, paint rollers, and definitely reference photos are super key for a scenic painter. And this person here is using a natural sponge to create a wallpaper effect. You can actually use it on stones. You can use it on, like, if you're doing a villa and it has to have like a stucco wall. Natural sponges are really great for all things scenic related. So I started at Lakewood, and then I ended up following Jeff Watts to the Waterville Opera House, which was super exciting. My first show that I painted for there was Auntie Mame. It was in, I believe, 2001. And I want to say that maybe the most notable difference between the Opera House and Lakewood was that the Opera House gave you weeks, if not months, to construct and create and paint the set. So with a lot more time, it was a lot easier to create really fantastic, amazing things. And the Opera House also has a significant budget for their productions, and they hire professionals to design the set, to build it, to paint it, to light it, to do the sound. So even though it's technically a community theater, their shows are pretty professional in quality, like pretty amazing. And part of the Waterville Opera House's mission, and I'm so happy to be involved with the Opera House on another level through Waterville Creates. It's very exciting. So their mission is to provide art experiences for all. They offer a unique mix of performances on their stage. They produce 3 straight plays, and a straight play is just a play without music. and 2 musicals each season. Pretty awesome. They host comedians, concerts, performance groups from all over the world. They do 3 school shows per year, and they really focus on trying to build the community one production at a time. So they're really great. I highly recommend auditioning for them or becoming involved in some way if you have the time. They're just a really wonderful theater to be involved with. So let's see. Most recently, I was working on the set for Tuck Everlasting, which was going to be produced the spring of 2020. And we all know what happened. I mean, it was canceled and suspended due to the pandemic. So I don't have any completed slides to show you from that production, but what I will be showing you today was from the season of 2012 and 2013 at the Waterville Opera House. And this is a scenic elevation that Chad Lefebvre designed for Spamalot. And these are the portals that essentially framed the stage. And they were fixed set pieces, so they were on stage all the time. And this was the reference photo that I worked from for the portals. I really didn't need to do any other hunting for reference photos. His scenic elevations were really clear. And he is a designer that really likes you to stick very, very closely as possible to his designs. Some scenic designers maybe just throw something out there and you do your own research, or don't really mind if you put your own little creative flair. But Chad really likes you to stick to his designs, and his designs are amazing. So these were the finished portals, and this is the Not Dead Yet scene. It was a musical number, I think at the beginning of the show. And this is a show that I worked, I want to say, solid 2 months on, maybe 3. And it was just really great.
Desiree, sorry to interrupt you.
Of course.
I was just going to mention, first of all, this set is just stunning. I wondered if you would, one of the things I'm noticing, and maybe others are noticing, is that the lighting is changing the color. And so
yes.
do you have to think about that as you work?
Well, so Chad also designed the lights for this show. So he probably thought out all of the details and the colors to use for the show to complement his lighting. But these are basically the real colors that I used. And then with the red lighting, I think, or the purple lighting that he put on the stage for this particular scene, changed the colors of the show, or the scenery for sure. And it's really cool. He does lighting professionally as well as doing scenic design professionally. So his work is amazing.
Cool,
and yeah. So here are a couple other scenic elevations that he sent me to work from. And so this was the general castle that you see here. And this was a moving, like a roll-on set piece, and it had 2 sides. I'll show you what the other side looks like a little bit later. So basically, this castle can be seen in this as well. These towers were fly-in set pieces that were basically up in the rafters and then flown in, and they came over this castle here. And then I think that we didn't end up doing this, or I couldn't find any pictures of this particular castle. So here's another, maybe with some different lighting, another view of the portal and the castle. And sometimes as a scenic painter, you also have to texturize and paint different just props and set pieces. Like for instance, this one was just made with like a plywood, and I texturized it to look like these different wood, like darker wood here. Oh, these are the fly-in towers. And I'll just let you look at that for a moment. I also on this show worked with another very talented scenic painter, Tamsin Warner, and she did the floor. Sometimes scenic designers really want the floor to look like something in particular, and it really can add to the design, especially for those who are sitting in the balcony. Sometimes, like at Lakewood, the floor is usually black or brown, because there's just not enough time to do anything to the floor. You just simply run out of time. So this is what the other side of this little main castle that rolls in, this is what the other side looked like. It was called the Swamp Castle. And this was the scenic elevation that Chad had me work from. And unfortunately, I don't have a great photo. It's a little blurry of the finished product here, but this is what it ended up being. Super fun. And this is for the production of Jekyll Hyde for the fall of 2012. All of the, like basically everything that you see was a flat surface that I painted, with the exception of these posts here. I think that they were like cardboard, really long tubes that I painted to look like metal. It was a steampunk themed production. All of the characters were in steampunk costumes. So cool. And this was another set designed by Chad. Amazing. And there was a lot of like open set and a lot of pieces that weren't like really relevant to the design, but they were like supporting pieces that had to be painted black. And as you may know, anything that you paint black on a stage disappears, right? So there was a lot of like painting things black. These rivets were all done with the swoop of a sponge brush. So one of these little guys, and it was basically just a turning movement like this. So, and then I just eyeballed the distance between them. Super cool. And we treated the floor for this one too. And then this black silhouette of the cityscape behind, I freehand drew based on Chad's design, and it was painstakingly cut out by the carpenters. And there's of course lighting and a backdrop behind it. So yeah, this was another set that I was super proud of. I actually used some metallic paints mixed in with the flat paints to create like a really coppery look. And okay, so I am going to stop the screen share for a moment so that I can do some live showing you how to do like bricks and stones and treating wood to make it look textured. And I'm going to take off my headphones here so that, yeah. Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, Desi, it sounds good.
Great. Are there any questions before I continue?
I haven't had any, Desi, except for I did have one about whether high school students can volunteer at the Opera House, which I answered.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Perfect. Okay.
Which is such a great question, actually.
Yeah, that is a great question. Okay.
Yeah. And Desi, I'm going to give you a time check just so you're aware. It's about 45 minutes in, just so you know. Okay. So you may want to do the demo and then we go right into them creating, or
yes, definitely. Okay.
It may be that not everyone gets to like do the whole creation, which is okay. They can send us photos, which is great.
Okay. So I'll just try to do this quickly here and just use the rustling of plastic. So I'm gonna turn the computer a little bit here. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, great. So I've done a couple examples of some different stones that have a lot of contrast. Everything here is a little bit cartoony and stylized. Some sets call for more realism, but just for the example here today, I did a little bit cartoony. So basically, I'll start with the stones. When painting a stone, you want to, like this is kind of like a field stone or a natural stone look. And I basically draw the outline or paint the outline first. That sponge brush doesn't work very well. Okay. So I paint the outline first and I try to kind of fit it in between the other stones. And I like to use a harsh black, but this sponge brush already had a little bit of another color on it. And then, so I'm going to use black, blue, like cobalt blue and white, and I'm going to mix a color that is slightly darker than the gray that I started with. And it's really important to have like a middle value gray that is all over the piece that you're painting to start with. It just adds that middle tone so you don't have to do that later on. And so I'm going to hit the kind of shadow and the low points, and you really don't have to be super fussy if it's like a cartoony stylized looking stone. You can really just do rough little movements and to create the shadows, because with considering the 30-foot rule, it's going to look amazing from far away, and the more contrast, the better, and it kind of adds a little extra texture. And then I just hit the top of the stone where I think the light would be coming from with a white. I just do a few little lines there, and I'll do some more highlights here. And there, voila, you have a stone wall. And for bricks, it's really great. I couldn't find exactly the right size sponge, but you basically just get a brick-shaped kitchen sponge. They do have long ones. And you mix like a brick color, and you can do just like a solid brick color. It would look completely fine. And you basically just eyeball it. Don't have to measure it out because it's, you know, perfectly rectangular. And you press it onto the surface. Maybe not a super straight line just because of the angle that I'm going from. And just put like a little bricky space between each of the bricks. And then I like to take a yellow and hit the top corner again, like considering where the light may be coming from. And I like to hit the bottom corner with a darker color to really delineate like that this is the shadow. And sponge brushes, I can't say this enough, they're magic, they're your friend as a scenic painter for sure. With the wood grain, this actually already ended up looking a little textured. I wanted it to be solid, but it wasn't cooperating with me. So you're going to use a chip brush for this. This is kind of, it's got like frayed edges, and it's really great for lightly dragging across the surface to create texture. And I'm just going to do, going to borrow a little bit of the brick color. I'm just going to do a little pink over it. We'll see what happens. But usually it would be like a lighter tone of the wood that you're doing. And the lighter it is, the more contrast and the more you see from far away. And you just lightly, you put it on very dryly, or you can wet it, but it might run. And you just lightly swipe the chip brush across. And then you can also do that with a darker color as well. So that's what I wanted to show you here today. Lots of sets call for stone and wood and bricks, so I figured it was a good one. Okay.
Cool. And so I think, Desiree, because of timing, what we might do is just have you demonstrate what you want the students to create or try. And then they may not have time to do it now, but we would encourage you to actually send us photos or email photos of some of your work. But Desiree kind of has like a little assignment for you that should be really fun, and it'll allow you to really get creative and be a set designer or try on set design and set modeling.
Right. So it's pretty easy to make a model. Basically, all you need is some sort of paper, and actually like just a file folder, the best file folders to use are these pocket folders, because they have really inflexible strips here on the side that can then be cut to support the back of your model. And so the set that I wanted you to think about today would be for the play The Secret Garden. There's a straight play and a musical. And I'll, just in case you're not familiar with the story of The Secret Garden, I'll share a little bit. So a girl named Mary, whose parents suddenly die, she's sent to live with her uncle in this like super creepy mansion. And she's like really lonely, and she finds out that she has like a bedridden cousin who's super unhealthy, and she's kind of unhealthy. And she goes exploring and finds a hidden magical garden. And as the garden grows, everyone gets healthier. And basically the themes in the show are that like healing, growth, nature. So today I made well, I didn't make it today, but I made a garden wall with a door to represent the secret garden. And on the back, I just attached it to the folder, and at the crease of the folder. So you want to like make your set piece, like paint it on a different piece of paper, draw it on a different paper, cut it out, and line it up with the front of the folder at the bottom where the crease is going to be. And so you can cut out like a little circle for support, or a little half moon for support. And then, like I said, cut out the really like inflexible parts of the folder. Anyway, you get it. And so what I wanted you to maybe do would be to make a piece that represents either the mansion, like either the interior or the exterior of the mansion. It could be literally like a wall or a building. Like this is my mansion that I made. Or it could just be a staircase. And then either a garden wall or a fountain or a bridge or something. Something that you'd find in the garden or on the mansion grounds. And you can pick one of those pieces, all three of those pieces, whatever you'd like to do. Yeah, so that's your assignment.
That's awesome. So I know Jessica Jones picked up some of the kits, so all the materials are there. But I know Suzanne Goulet is now watching with some students at the high school. So our idea is that you guys actually do some set design. Now, the Secret Garden also, you guys could also look and Google Secret Garden because there's lots of productions of it. So
yes. I do have some pictures that I could put up for inspiration if you'd like.
You want to show them real quick, Desi, and then we'll pause for questions. I think
And
this happens often during slices that we kind of run out of time, because an hour isn't all that long.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this was, I think, for a music production of it, so beautiful. Really just speaking to the garden aspect and not the mansion. And they really just went with the garden and the blooming theme. This, I think it represents the walls in the garden. And these look like actual pieces that were built to stick out, and not just painted, so that the light would catch the different crevices and nooks and crannies. Super cool. This is a model that I found. It's very intricate, and it actually is to scale. And I want to talk a little bit about scale, just for this. The scale that I would like you to do would be 1 inch of the paper would equal 1 foot of the flats, or the pieces that would be built. So if you do like an 8-inch model of something, it would then translate, if you were to build the set, to 8 feet tall. So that's something to consider. Here's another, I think that these pieces moved or were turned around or were taken off stage, and then these pieces were brought in. Super beautiful. Let me see if there's another. Oh, here's another view of maybe how you could construct. These were the models that I made for the selfie stations, and they were an inch to foot ratio scale. So Serena, in your opinion, should I put it back on the secret garden, or should I leave it on this?
Yeah. Well, why don't we stop screen sharing and see if we've got, oh yeah, we've got a little question here. Could you show us your example with the garden door again?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I want to just look really quickly. I may have put a slide in at the very end. No, I didn't. Sorry. Let me go back to you. Okay. Can you see this okay?
Yeah, that looks great. And then what's the back look like again, just so that we see that?
Sure. So
Cool.
the back is this.
Great. And Desiree, you used watercolor for those, right?
I did, yes. I'm able to work really quickly with watercolor, and the colors really pop, but colored pencil, marker, anything you have is totally fine.
Awesome.
And just again, with the back, it would be this part of the folder that you would use, and you would use the natural crease that's already the folder. And nice. Really, like the top of mine is super intricate and has a lot of cutouts, but the part of the folder that I like trace this onto the folder, and the part that I cut out isn't that intricate. It was basically just a supporting piece.
Cool. I know you mentioned this, but one of the friends of any scenic painter is probably Google. Right? Oh. So you can look up things, you can look at references, you can also look up, what's the story of the secret garden, which is a fabulous book, by the way. And the other thing I was going to say too is that people can go outside right now. There's so many beautiful leaves. You could make a fall secret garden, right? You could be inspired outdoors. That'd be cool.
That would be amazing. And you can choose to make the secret garden like the gloomy secret garden before everything starts to bloom, or you can do the secret garden that is in full bloom and healthy and sunny and wonderful. That's what I chose to do, like the happy, the ending of the secret garden. But yeah, you can choose which theme you want to go with. Awesome. And I want to note that back when I started in 1999, I had to use a lot of books for reference. I'm that old, and I started that long ago that I couldn't just Google everything with my phone. Or I had to have stuff like printed out at the time.
That's awesome.
Photocopied. Yeah.
Cool. So I think one of the things I wanted to do just now is if people have more questions for Desi, please feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A. But I also wanted to just real quick, we've mentioned the Waterville Opera House. I just wanted to do a quick plug because their next play is Clue. Now, most of the students here have not probably seen the 1985 version of Clue, nor played the board game. I don't know, maybe you have, maybe your parents have, but that is coming up November 12th, that opens. And that set is designed by the same person that Desiree was talking about, Chad Lefebvre. Is that the right way to say his name?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And he's actually works nationally as a set designer. He's incredible. So his design will be on view at Clue. And it's a really interesting set because it has multiple rooms that have to be represented, lots of rooms. It's a mansion. And so the set design is really cool. There's a lot of fly-in pieces in that. There's like 7 doors that the actors are going through. So it's a very cool set to get to see. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. It's just going to be an awesome play. It's funny and it's a murder mystery sort of, but also kind of hilarious and a farce. So, okay. So let me just make sure we don't have any other questions. And what I'm going to do now is in the chat, I'm going to put up a link to our feedback form. And then I would love to have people.
Thank you.
So there's the link in the chat, and that's the feedback form. I'm also going to email this out to everyone. We would love to have feedback. So we do these, we do 5 more weeks, I think, or 4 more weeks of Slice, and we try to get it to be better every single time. So that link, I'm just testing the link works. It does, the link works. So we would love to have you all fill that in. If it's easier for you, you can also print that out, fill it in, and I can pick it up, especially at the 2 Waterville school locations. So great.
And I would love very much to see pictures of any creations that you make from today. That would be amazing.
We would both love that. It would be awesome. Okay, so Jessica says thank you. Okay, so thank you all so much. Thanks, Suzanne Goulet also joined us later in our presentation here, but that's great. So our next Slice is coming up next week. So next week on October 20th, and I forget if it's at 12:30 or 11, but you can find it on our website. And that one will be with the Colby College Museum of Art. They'll be working with Maine Inside Out, looking at social justice and art. So I think they're going to be doing really more of a creative writing activity, but they are working with, I think, 4 different artists will be panelists, I think, presenting, talking about social justice and art and activism. And it's also in conjunction with their current exhibition, the Bob Thompson exhibition at Colby Museum of Art. So please let us know and register if you'd like to be part of that one. And then after that, we have painting miniatures, D&D miniatures with Maine State Librarian. And then we have a stop motion animation Slice. And then last but not least, we have one on graphic novels, which with fabulous Russ Cox, who has done work with us before. This time he's going to really focus on how do you create a graphic novel and what's the program, the software that he uses to do that. So, and he's a children's book illustrator, graphic novelist, and now actually doing some teaching. So awesome. So I guess without further ado, thank you so much for attending. I will send you also an email with that link. We have recorded today, so this will be edited and up on our YouTube and our Facebook pretty soon, probably in the next day or 2. So thank you all for attending. And Desi, thank you so much. That was so fabulous. I realize you crunched in so much information in such a short period of time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
I know how much prep work you did for this. It was just awesome. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right. So thanks everyone. Have an awesome day today. Yay. Lila says thank you too. Thanks, Lila.
Thank you, Lila. Thank you so much for coming.